Welcome to the Piedmont Triad Podcast.
Before I get too old, I'm gonna head down to Muscle Shoals. Baby, you can meet me at the station.
Welcome to another episode of the Piedmont Triad Podcast, the only podcast that talks about the strange and unusual people, places, and things in the Piedmont Triad, North Carolina area. I'm your host, David Locklear, and on this episode, we're talking to Doomsday Profit, a band hailing from Durham, North Carolina that is specializing in sludge and doom metal the way it's supposed to be. Ugly, rough, slow, it's just fucking awesome. And it's exactly what you want if you're into any kind of doom or sludge metal, which North Carolina has, strangely enough, started becoming sort of well known for in the last probably 10 or so years, with the rise up of bands like Weed Eater and Bogloaf and Basque, and recently with Cosmic Reaper. There are so many really good bands who have been carrying the torch of doom and sludge metal ever since the days of Buzz Oven and guys that have hailed from places like High Point. And it's just amazing to me that there is a band this good that stays local to us. And so they agreed to come on and chat with us. Actually, as a matter of fact, we did an interview prior to this one, and it just didn't do very well. We were kind of cut short on time. It just didn't go well. So thankfully, they were nice enough to do a do-over with me. And so they sat down and they chatted with me. They talked to me about their 2021 EP called In Idle Orbit, which is just an amazing record if you like this type of music. It's great from beginning to end. And they talked to me about that. They also talked to us about their band's travel mishaps, all of the fun little adventures that they have on the road being a traveling band in the sort of regional area. They talked to me about their brand new van, which happens to only be 20 years old, and they have named adorably Vanthony Bourdain, which I think is just a fantastic name and a very loving name when you think about it, for a van that's going to put up with a band's nonsense. I mean, the load in and out, all the farting, probably the smoking. Vans do not get enough credit for the abuse that they take when it comes to taking bands from gig to gig. And they also like to talk to me, they did talk to me about the warm vibe of the music community and how supportive the music community is in this area to support bands like this, to show people that they care about this kind of music. This is the type of music that they want to have and support. And so they have thankfully been finding that support with their fans, and they've been growing a solid fan base. I'm definitely one of their fans. So I'm hoping them all the success in the world, and I'm so glad that they were able to talk to me. So without further ado, here is my interview with Doomsday Profit. have you guys introduce yourselves so that way people can keep up with whose voice is speaking when we go through the rest of this.
Sure. I'm Brian Reed. I sing, if you want to call it that, and play guitar, if you want to call it that, for Doomsday Profit.
I am Ryan Sweeney. I am the bassist for Doomsday Profit. I also lend some backup vocals, if you can call it that.
Now, let me ask you guys something. Are you guys usually the ones that will kind of go out and sort of mingle with fans and potential fans and whatnot, while the other guys are like, I want no part of that? I've run into that a few times where I've contacted band members and I'm like, hey man, you guys want to talk? And whoever I've gotten in touch with, they're like, hell no, talk to this guy. I don't want to talk to anybody. So is there a similar dynamic?
I've encountered that with other bands that I've interviewed for various projects as well. There always seems to be at least one or two representatives that is pretty consistent on the interviews. I think it's just how band dynamics work. I wouldn't say that the other guys, Kevin or David, are, opposed to having conversations with fans or such, but I think it's just that Brian and I kind of default to the kind of taking the call and doing the marketing aspect of the band anyway.
Yeah, so. It does seem like there usually ends up being one or two spokespeople for a given band. Ryan and I have both worked in media over the years, so I think we're just a little bit more comfortable with interviews and press kind of things. But in terms of like at shows, I think I will say, for me, and I think it's probably true for everybody. Ryan, you feel free to correct me, but I think before we play, there's a little bit of like focus and like trying to get into zone and get ready to perform. So we're not super social like beforehand, but once our set's done, we are always around watching the other bands and having conversations and meeting the people who come out. And that's part of the fun for us. We're not going to try to hide in the green room or anything. But I think pre-show is always a little bit just kind of like, all right, I got to focus. I have this thing that I have to do coming up and I don't want to be late. I don't want to mess up. There's just 100 things going through your head.
And it's a little harder to be social before you play a show. So, you have to try a little bit harder to be a little bit more extroverted before we play, but afterwards it's pretty easy. I handle merch, or primarily, so I'm engaging with people before and after the show, but it definitely is a little bit, I guess, it takes a little bit more effort to be engaging and outgoing in the midst of kind of mentally preparing for a show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could imagine that. I mean, it's like no matter what interview I'm doing with somebody, I'm always, I don't know, it's like I get jittery for some reason. It's like I'm trying to focus really hard on making sure it's as good as it can be. And there's always it seems no matter what, there's always some kind of a fuck up. It doesn't matter how much you try. It's like, there's that one little thing. And I'm sure you guys run into that constantly at shows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what kind of fun mishaps always seem to occur?
We had one show in Asheville that was one of those nights that like probably was like a make or break like prove yourself night. Our old van was a 1984 conversion van that was starting to fall apart. There was a hole in the floor. There was the seat that like you had to brace it 90 degrees against the side. Otherwise it just like floated around. It was quickly becoming a death trap. And we were driving to play in Asheville at the 27 Club. And as we're going through the mountains, we hit a thunderstorm and the windshield wipers broke like off. It was attached, but like the mechanism that actually makes it swish completely broke. They were not working. It was pouring rain on windy mountain roads. So we managed to pull off at the very next the sunroof, like the sealant on that is giving way. So we're stuffing dirty t-shirts and towels and things to keep the water from coming into the van. And we pull in, and fortunately we've got tons of time. Everything, we're like, all right, the storm should be passing. Kevin is our de facto meteorologist, so he was watching the radar like a hawk, just keeping an eye on everything. And where we pulled off, it ended up, I can't remember the name. I wish I could, because I'd plug it, but there was a brewery and a cafe right there. So we were like, cool, we'll get something to eat, have a beer, like just wait for an hour or so till the storm rides out, and then we'll be okay to get where we're going. And so that's what we did. And we got back in the van, and it wouldn't start.
Oh gosh.
So we ended up having to get the van towed to the venue. Kevin's girlfriend Bree came up. She was going to see the show, so she went out of her way to come pick up three of us, and then our drummer at the time rode in, because it was his van. He rode with the tow truck, and we got to the show, played the show, and kind of just had our van parked. But by the time we got there, it was too late to like get a jump or whatever we needed. So we ended up having friends with the trucks come and like haul our gear to our friend's house where we were staying. And it was a series of catastrophes, but ultimately ended up just fine.
Yeah.
It was a fun show that a few people got to see.
Yeah. It ended up being pretty like raw and sloppy in the right way.
Yeah. I think
it was like us at the end of a weekend run, completely exhausted and partially defeated after this auto incident, just kind of saying fuck it and putting just all of the chaos into the show.
That's good though. Yeah, that's a big part of artistic expression. Yeah, is taking that, personal frustration and kind of throwing it into whatever your art medium is, as it were. So that's cool. That's good to hear that. I'm sure it made it, like you said, edgier.
Well, and it's one of those things, I think, as you're starting out as a band, you kind of have to get over those first bad days just to see how you handle them. And because when you're on the road, like even for a short run, you never really know what's going to happen. Like it's easy to get on each other's nerves. You're stuck in a van, and again, even if it's just a couple days, like it's long enough to be tired and smelly. And, if things don't go right, like it can compound pretty quickly. And so like in retrospect, I'm glad we had that experience, because we learned that we could handle it, and we could go out and put on a show even when we probably weren't in the optimal headspace. But so, we haven't had anything quite so robustly catastrophic since then. Yeah, I'm knocking very hard right now. Because we're looking to do almost a full week in September, and hopefully nothing goes wrong. Hopefully we don't have any more catastrophes along the way. But
our new van, Vanthony Bourdain, is a trusty steed.
It's 20 years. It's 20 years younger, which means it's only 20 years old. And
Anthony, that's funny you're mentioning.
Unlike,
oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. I was going to say Vandolph, unlike the Gandalf of its namesake, did not rise again.
Oh, poor Vandolph. Sorry.
Yeah. R.I.P. Vandolph.
Right. I know. Yeah. It's the piece of shit vehicles are the ones you remember the most fondly. And so,
I don't know if fondly is the right word. I remember it. I have fond memories of Vandolph. It was like, it was a boogie van for sure. Like brown exterior, red shag carpet interior,
hole in the floor.
Yeah, it was it was sort of like what you want your first band vehicle to be. But I'm glad we've upgraded to Vanthony Bourdain. Which has more space, is a little bit more reliable. We've upgraded to CDs now in the car, which is a big technological improvement for us. So
yeah, I hear they're very clear sounding. That's cool. Now, I remember hearing about the band Mastodon. They talked about their very first touring band, and they said it was eventually dubbed the Fart Box. And that's a lot more disturbing than Vanthony Bourdain. I like that because at least there's an implication of good smells coming from that name.
Exactly. I did try to
how
get
far into the run we are.
there is a reason that we sell air fresheners as merch. Sometimes we dip into our own supply. We'll say that.
Yeah, I loved the air fresheners when we went to see you guys at Monstercade. My daughter just got such a kick out of that, and she was like, "Oh, these are very nice Doom scented air fresheners." She let me smell. I was like, "Oh yeah, that is kind of pleasant." So do those things, speaking of the little air fresheners, do they sell pretty well? Is that usually a pretty good item for you guys?
That's actually been one of the slower ones, but I'm glad we tried it. One, because we've used them, so they come in handy. But merch is hard because aside from T-shirts, and I mean I know you can never have enough black T-shirts, but aside from T-shirts and records, it's hard to figure out what's something that would be not just junk, but also like easy enough to travel with. We've had a couple friends who got like pint glasses for their band, which are awesome, but they end up just giving them away to friends because they're like, I just need to get rid of these. I can't. They take up so much space.
Oh yeah, and I bet traveling with those things is a bear.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you got to be so jealous. It's probably like traveling with eggs. It's just always worrying about them cracking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, anything that's flat and inexpensive, but, we've done stickers. Everybody loves stickers, but we wanted to try something a little bit different. We actually played with another band called Witching from Philadelphia, and they had air fresheners too. So I'm not sure if their experiences differed, but it's flat, it's inexpensive. Try to make it so that, anybody who wants to come buy something, there's something available. We're usually happy to give away stickers, or we always have free earplugs.
That's always nice.
We want people to be able to hear us again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I come from that generation where it was cool to be deaf and stupid, and I decided kind of early on I didn't want to be a part of that, so I was you're a nerd, you've got earplugs in, and it's like, well, I don't have tinnitus in my late 50s, so I think I'll be good.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, being able to hear a band repeatedly is a big plus health wise.
And we're a loud band. Like there's no question about that. I think volume wise we tend to even within doom metal, I think we're on the louder side of things. Mm-hmm. So the trade-off is, you get to feel all that air moving, which we love and is a huge part of it for us, but also like we want people to be safe and enjoy it as well. So ear protection is a good idea.
Well, I would like to ask you guys something. I've heard conflicting stories about, or not even stories, but just, I guess maybe theories from musicians. They say that, I've heard a lot of musicians say that playing slower stuff like Doom can actually be much more difficult than the sort of high speed kind of thrash metal type stuff, because from what I've understood, if you're playing really fast, it's like your muscle memory kind of knows what to do and you can kind of buzz all over the place. But when you're playing slowly and trying to keep that beat, it's harder to hit those notes at the exact time and sort of be cool and rocky at the same time. And is that been your experience? Because I've also heard other guys say it's like, no, I just can't play fast. I play slow stuff because it's a hell of a lot easier. I was wondering where do you guys fall in this particular conflict that I've run into over the years?
I feel like it's definitely harder to play from a rhythm perspective, specifically talking as a bass player. Mm-hmm. I think playing slow is definitely more of a challenge. Playing fast, there's the stamina aspect, but playing slow, there's kind of the calculation of the BPMs and trying to make sure it's there's less room for error, I guess, when you look at a beat, and sometimes you can play slightly ahead of or slightly below a beat, especially when you're going faster. That gap gets smaller, but there's much more. Like if you're off rhythmically on a slower BPM, it's going to be much more noticeable. And I would say playing slow is much harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that.
I don't know that I agree wholesale with that statement. I think ultimately it's easiest to play what you practice the most. I've never been in a thrash band. I've never, played 300 BPM. So I can tell you right now, I can't do it now, but if I sat down and spent a couple of years doing that, I'd probably be able to figure it out. I also think, for Doomsday Profit, we don't have the really laboriously slow pacing that some bands do. We tend to be more mid-tempo overall. We tend to be more, not quite as spacious. Like you listen to a band like Earth, and when Dylan Carlson and Adrian Davies are locked in, like there's so much space between the drum hits that like you don't have that metronome to go by. They're really just sort of in dialogue with each other, which is really cool. And like the chemistry and dynamics between the musicians to pull that off is extremely difficult. And like it's a different kind of precision than playing, straight 30-second notes at 150 BPM. I think it does, Ryan, to your point, it gets harder when you slow down the BPM and you're putting space between notes. It's not straight eighths or sixteenths or whatever. Yeah. And so there's just a lot more space. And then when you hit, you all have to hit together, and if it falls off a little bit, it's very noticeable. But I think that's just being tight as a band to whatever genre, whatever speed you're playing. Like if you're putting in starts and stops and shifts in rhythm, you have to know each other. You got to know the song, but you got to know each other and be able to use more than one sense to stay locked in. I mean, you're counting in your head, you're watching each other, you're listening to each other. So there's got to be multiple ways to like keep pace with where you are, whatever pace you're playing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that kind of what you're talking about is sort of lends itself to what we talked about the last time we were talking to each other, is the spiritual aspect. Like what you just touched on was saying, like in Earth they have almost a a spiritual connection to to make the music that they're making. And like last time we talked, we were saying how you guys seem to agree that there's a connection to God on some level when you're playing music, when you're sort of a part of music. Like there's a strange sort of spatial, even universal connection that hits. And I feel like that a lot of the times that's sort of discounted with bands, that in order to really sync up with each other, both, in the technical aspect, but also, from the heart, from the soul, it is something that's just as important. Like if you don't like each other, but you play well together, it's almost like it's keeping you from really hitting like great heights, because you're sitting there going, yeah, he can play well, but he's a dick. And I can imagine that kind of screws up your musicality. So
I don't know. I think there have been some great bands that couldn't stand each other, and
that's true.
Fleetwood Mac made Rumors when they were all breaking up and hating each other. So.
You're right. And as soon as that popped out of my mouth, I thought of Rumors. I was like, well, that was stupid,
No, I think you're right. And I mean, aside from the sort of like ephemeral connections that music makes between people, I think, I've heard it said that if you're playing in a band, you're either doing it because you like the music you like the people you're playing with, or you're making good money. And you should strive to have two of the three. Yeah, because nobody's making money, at least not in doom metal, not, in any enormous amounts. So yeah, I mean, if you're not enjoying the music that you're playing and you're not enjoying the people that you're playing it with, it's sort of like, why are you doing it at all? I think you can, some bands are definitely more, they're bandmates, they get along, but they get along like coworkers or colleagues, which I think is fine. But I've always kind of idealized the band as gang kind of thing, where, like you kind of look the same. You kind of like, you have that unspoken language that, really close friends and family have. And, I know a lot of it is somewhat contrived and it's manufactured to some degree, but like when you look at bands like the Ramones or the Clash, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a group of people that belong together. And for the most part, like, you can't really swap them in and out. You can't have a rotating cast of characters. That, there's some lineup changes along the way, but it's rare and hard to, like, it changes the dynamics. So that's always been the kind of band that I've wanted to be in, as opposed to like either being a sideman or having to shoulder everything myself. Like, I like that we have a more democratic songwriting process. I like that, we go to shows together, we play Magic the Gathering together. Like, we do things as friends in addition to being a band. And we enjoy the time that we get to spend together at practice or on the road. When we're traveling, we like to, find some place to go see or do something or get something to eat. And, like, treat it like a guy's weekend. Like, some guys like to go play golf or go to Vegas or whatever. We go on tour.
But I mean, that's awesome, because at the very least you're kind of monetizing whatever your hangout time is. And that's, that's a cool trick to pull off.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal. The goal is for it to pay for itself. We're almost there, but, I think there've been a couple instances where, like, we pull up to a gas station or a hotel or whatever. And people are like, what band are you guys? Like, they see us and they're just like, okay, yeah, there's like these long-haired, except for me, guys piling out of a van. They're all wearing black. Like even if they don't see the van, like, we've walked into hotel lobbies and the person working at the desk is like, oh, are you guys playing tonight?
Those are the people that have seen a few bands walk through from time to time. They've probably seen really famous ones and had no idea, didn't care, probably took pictures, and they were like, oh yeah, it was David Lee Roth. He was a nice guy. He seemed like he was big in the 80s.
Yeah. But like, that kind of like validates what I'm going. It doesn't look like we're just like four random people who happen to be walking in at the same time. Like, we don't have a uniform or anything. Obviously, it's not a costume kind of affair. But being able to like walk into a space and have that connection between us that other people are picking up on, and hopefully it shows up on stage too. Like, I think we like watching each other play. Like, Ryan and I will sometimes like look at each other after Kevin plays a really ripping solo and just like grin, because we're having a good time. We're like, every now and then Dave will pull out a fill that we haven't heard before, and it's just like we get stoked. Like, it's weird to be like a fan of your own music, I guess, but I kind of feel like at the same time, like, if we don't like it, we shouldn't expect anybody else to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, why make music if you're not making music that you want to listen to and you enjoy listening to it?
Yeah,
it's kind of like that. Like, I want to make music that we like listening to, and if other people like it, even better. Like, that's kind of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I kind of come from that same mentality too. I remember when I was a kid, I would always, for example, I was obsessed with the movie Easy Rider, and I loved the cross country aspect of storytelling, and I went through a period of about 2 or 3 years where I was looking sort of for that perfect cross country story. Couldn't find what I was looking for, and I finally just had that epiphany. I was like, well, all right, I need to make it then. I know what I want, and so I just kind of wrote it on my own, and that's sort of the mentality I've taken with a lot of things as I've gotten older, where it's like, okay, if I want something, it's probably not out there, and I should try and do it myself. So I think that sounds like the same thing you guys are doing in terms of doom metal.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's every band, at least every band working, in the underground or the independent circuit, is like, you have to do a lot of things yourself, because we don't have, right now we don't have a record label, we don't have a booking agent, we don't have all of the business things, and most bands don't. I mean, it's not like that, but that means if we want to go play a show, we got to send emails and find other bands to play with and find a venue that would host, and we're not a cover band, so we're writing our own material, we're doing all that stuff, and it's time and effort, and if it's not something that you find intrinsic value in, then again, it's like there's the material rewards don't justify it. Nobody should be getting into this trying to make it rich. Like, you're not striking oil with a sludge metal band. It's just not happening.
There's like a certain reality you accept when you go into making this kind of music. It's like, in terms of ratio of the world's population, maybe 0.08% is really going to dig that, and I hope they find it. Because there are so many bands out there. Yeah, so it's like, if you can make any kind of a mark, I think you're doing better than most. And it seems like you guys have actually tried, or have actually kind of struck iron a little bit, that you have connected with people.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of freeing to not have too much ambition. I think, we're all pretty much in agreement. We want to take this as far as we're able to, but we have careers, we have partners, we have other interests and responsibilities. So it's not a full-time thing. We're not relying on it to pay our rent or put food on the table, which means we can have fun with it. And if we never write a hit single, nobody cares, except us. We don't have anybody in a suit being like, well, you should really start incorporating more electronic elements because that's what's trendy. Like, if we ever do that, it's because we thought it would be fun. And, I guess I've never, ever since I was a kid and like started discovering music, I got into punk rock, I got into heavy metal and then indie rock and all this stuff that was all somewhat idiosyncratic and not necessarily palatable or populist in sound and approach. And it just made me realize, like, you can kind of do it however you want, and you'll resonate with some people and you won't with others, and that's fine. And there's a lot of people who, even the biggest acts on the planet, there's a lot of people who don't care for Beyonce's music or U2's music or whatever. There's just also a lot of people that are quite fond of it, and that's great. I think I am very well aware that, like, as a band with harsh vocals, there's a limited appeal to what we do. That's a big sticking point for a lot of people. And I don't care. I like doing harsh vocals. So like,
we've also had several people come up to us and say that it was their first ever metal show and that they enjoyed the set. So,
oh, that's cool.
It is cool to hear it, not just once, but several times. It's kind of cool to kind of welcome some new ears to a genre, and surprisingly, I guess, going against that barrier of harsh vocals too.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should like counterbalance that, because we're not like this super aggro, like impenetrable band that's just trying to out extreme everybody by any means. Like, we also like things like big choruses and hooks and groove and, you know, the things that make rock and roll fun. So,
yeah,
you know, I hope we keep some of those elements in there, and just kind of like continue to just go wherever our ears and creative instincts lead us.
Yeah. Like, well, one of the things you're talking about was like having, you do like a chorus and you guys like a bit of a hook. Is the first thing that came to my mind was, abandon hope, abandon hope. I'm like, that's catchy.
Yeah.
I can see when I sing that to other people why it might make them sad. But I like it. So, I mean,
that brings up a good point too. I think about the meaning that songs can take on, where lyrics might have one interpretation on paper, but in delivery or reception, they could take on a different meaning. Abandon hope potentially taking on a meaning of more positivity in a certain light than maybe initially intended or
than it has on paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know, I mean, music has a way of combining things too. Like, how many really dark songs can you think of have just like a killer hook and beats, and are just like, they come off on the surface as like super catchy pop songs, and then you're like, oh wait, what is Pumped Up Kicks actually about?
Yeah, that one was kind of weird when you really set that one down. You're like, okay, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and you know, Rumors again, like just absolutely buoyant pop the whole way through with a whole lot of emotional nuance. And you know, I think heavy music has a tendency, and it's kind of cliche to say, you know, to talk about the catharsis or what, you know, the way that it just sort of is a pressure valve.
Yeah.
But I think it gives for me, you know, in writing lyrics and in writing the songs, it's a way to kind of explore some things that are maybe, you know, more anxious or frustrating in the world, and kind of turn it into something else. And, you know, I think live, like big, loud amps have a presence in the room that is cathartic, like just being surrounded by volume and like when it's so loud that you can actually feel it. And, you know, to have lyrics like, you know, abandon hope, which, you know, I hope nobody takes that too literally, but you know, in the context of the song, it's sort of, you know, it becomes this thing where it's almost like the Greek chorus, I guess, in that sense, where like you have these voices kind of just like, this is what they're telling you. And then you know, you hear that and you can decide what you want to do with that and how you want to move forward. But now it's out, you've gotten it out, and we all got to scream that at each other and, kind of exercise that a little bit. Yeah.
I've long, you know, preached the therapeutic benefits of heavy metal, even when I was younger, and my mother simply did not believe me when I was listening to, you know, shit like Law's Rocket and Cannibal Corpse and what. Well, she didn't know about Cannibal Corpse. She would have never let me listen to that. I had to sneak that. But I was listening, unbeknownst to her. She would have set that shit on fire. But it's kind of funny how that's how I felt about it. Anytime I've listened to music when I've been really angry or frustrated, and I listen to, you know, heavy metal, it's like it is a bit of a valve. It lets off some steam, and I'm able to focus. I'm a little bit more clear, as opposed to, you know, it just building up, and then I'm Charles Whitman one afternoon because, you know, a guy cut me off in traffic. And I think there's so much, and I think they've actually done real world studies on some of the cathartic benefits of this type of music, and I think that that's cool. You know, talking about catharsis, you know, you guys, the music you play is pretty rough, and a lot of the times that does come from a place of like frustration and trauma sort of early on in life, and that's part of the connection. Like, that was part of the connection for me, was hearing something that kind of spoke to how I was feeling when I was growing up and I didn't know how to express it, and this was a good expression. You know, do you guys come from that type of perspective with metal? Was it something you attached to because it was a way of helping you deal with sort of a stress or trauma or something like that? Or was it just because you thought it was awesome music and enjoyed the vibe?
Well, both. I think punk to me and hardcore spoke more directly to how I was feeling, particularly as a teenager. Bands like Minor Threat that were kind of like, especially, I mean, Minor Threat in particular was very much like they were a high school band when that was happening, and not long after. So many of those songs are very like targeted at adolescent emotions.
Yeah.
But it to me, it was a way of like, okay, there's these things that are frustrating or confusing where like, you're navigating relationships with friends and people changing and, sort of like becoming aware of the world around you in different ways, socially, politically, etc. And like seeing things for what they are. And, there's a lot of disillusionment that comes with, finding out that your heroes are human, or, in my case, sort of coming to realize that a lot of the institutions that are supposedly there to maintain order and protect you are not necessarily working in your best interests.
Mm-hmm.
And to sort of like have a way to speak out against that, or to feel like you're not alone in those thoughts, that, other people have had them and have expressed them. Metal for me was weirdly kind of different. My intro to metal was really through bands like In Flames and At the Gates, that sort of melodic death metal that to me just felt really triumphant and overcoming those things that like punk was sort of railing against it, and I think of that as sort of like climbing the mountain, like digging your pick into all of the things that, are standing in your way. And then metal for me was the big, like triumphant moment when you reach the summit. And so, I guess, hopefully there's a little bit of both. But like metal has so much more of the fantastical element and the grandiosity. If you listen to something like Dio, and it just feels like, you're on top of the world sometimes. Punk is very like street level to me, is much more grounded and more rooted in reality, whether it's a political reality or emotional reality. Just sort of like confronting things. Ironically, I think punk is also very hopeful music typically, because if you're fighting something, if you're railing against something, it means you think it can be better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And actually you've sort of answered a question that I've had in general for a little while, that I've never been a big fan of more melodic metal and like power metal, like Sabaton and bands like that. They're it's like I in a weird way, I like my stuff to have a bit of a rough edge to it. And so when I hear like Sabaton and they're like, la, 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 it's like, we are going to the mountains. And it's like, oh yeah, it's fine, but it doesn't do anything for me. So hearing what you're saying is like, it's triumphant. It feels like you've reached a finish line, and that makes sense. Like, okay.
Well,
that
some
makes
of it
sense.
can be pretty cheesy too. Like, and I mean, there's a degree of that it's fun, it's like, there's a kayfabe element of like, we're just going to like enjoy this thing in part because it's cheesy and we're along for the ride with it. I mean, a lot of that stuff particularly doesn't resonate with me as much either. And I think, as my tastes have evolved, like doom, death metal, grind, that stuff is, and I tend to like the stuff that's more, I guess, simple and groove oriented and not quite as fantastical. I mean, I like Maiden and Dio, but like Sabaton doesn't do much for me particularly, or a lot of power metal. If there's keyboards, I'm probably not super into it.
Yeah. I'm the same way with flute. There's a lot of these kind of retro bands that have been out for, I guess, maybe 15 years at this point, where they, use the old vintage equipment and whatnot. And there's bands like Blood Ceremony. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of them. And I like their sound.
I saw them live at Desert Fest a few months back.
Did you?
They put on a good show. Yeah,
see, I believe that. I absolutely believe that. But that fucking flute throws me every time. It drives me nuts.
They do kind of sound like they're gonna win a Grammy over Metallica.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of witchy Jethro Tull, basically.
Yeah. And that's probably part of the reason is I'm one of the people in this world. I hate Jethro Tull. It's one of those things. I've had so many arguments with my music friends about it. They're like, no, Aqualung, and I'm like, fuck Aqualung, man. Fuck that band. Like, you ever heard the Passion Play? That album is garbage. I do not care what anybody tells me. So I don't know. I may have dug my feet too far into the sand on this one. So I may be fighting a battle that doesn't need to be fought anymore. But there are just some things I can't get past. And I'm glad to hear they put on a good live show. But yeah, flutes, man. Flutes, keyboards are a little easier to pull off, but it's still kind of tricky. So I'm with you there. Sorry, that was a bizarre side trail I just jumped down. I didn't mean to let you guys that far into my head.
It's all good.
Well, going back to it, so talking about how you guys got into this type of music, do you have any specific memory of like an album or a band or something that was where you were like, oh, I think I might like heavy metal, like this might be my thing?
It was kind of a slow journey for me at the start. My good friend David, who is also our drummer currently, he and I were good friends in high school, and he started listening to Maiden and Priest, and eventually got into Opeth, and Between the Buried and Me. So I kind of absorbed that by through his discoveries, and heavy music was kind of it was something that I'd listened to, but it wasn't a large percentage of what I would listen to. I kind of went in a more prog direction. From Opeth, I went more towards Porcupine Tree, and into Porcupine Tree, Frank Zappa, and all that shit. So kind of went in a more prog, heavy psych direction with the majority of my listening. But over the past, I want to say, 8 years or so, I've been gravitating. It's been what I've been wanting to listen to more and more. I think partially from, Brian sending me things to listen to, and my own, discoveries as well. I think actually I was the one that sent Brian Electric Wizard, at one point.
Nice.
No. I got you to listen. I got you to sit and listen to Dope Throat.
Yeah, you got me to reevaluate it. I had listened to it before and was kind of like, oh, and then it resonated the next time.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely now it's, 70% of what I'm listening to. It's what I'm craving.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like to wormhole things. So once I find something that I enjoy, I'll dig down.
Okay. Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. I think for me, it was, in high school, I was listening to a lot of punk. So Dead Kennedys, Minor Threat, The Damned, and the Ramones, and the Clash, and all that stuff. The Misfits were huge for me. When I got to college, I was making friends with basically any other scene kid around, and it was metalcore was the big thing at the time. So bands like Glass Casket and BT Bam were sort of big presences, even though I wasn't super invested in them at the time. Then, a little bit later into college, I had some friends who started introducing me to stuff like Mastodon around the time that Leviathan came out, and Boris and Face Down and Shit. And Boris and Face Down and Shit in particular really stuck with me. I still listen to Pink and Nothing Positive, Only Negative a lot. And
I love Face Down and Shit.
Yeah. They're so good and so underrated. I will plug that band forever.
Yeah. They kind of remind me of
one of the best sludge albums.
Have you ever heard of 7 Foot Spleen?
Mm-hmm.
It's same kind of a thing. It's that sort of blah, and then they went away.
Yeah. Well, I'll admit I only found out about 7 Foot Spleen fairly recently, but really super into it. And that happened because I moderate a Facebook group for North Carolina, South Carolina regional doom stoner and sludge metal, and ex-members of 7 Foot Spleen joined the group and posted some stuff. And
hell yeah!
I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. And like, I think Kirk from Buzz Oven's in the group now, and Ramsey from Weed Eater and Buzz Oven. So it's pretty cool to start to connect with some of those artists that like we take a lot of inspiration from.
Yeah, that's really cool when they kind of take notice of you a little bit. That's always a good ego boost, even if only 5 people maybe appreciate it. You're like, this is cool for me. I don't care what you think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's a cool thing about underground music in general. Like we play on a lot of the same stages. We've gotten to open for Bongzilla, Thou, Black Tusk, some of these bands that, we've hooked up to, and, we've played the Poorhouse a bunch of times. Like that's where Conan played when they came through on tour.
Yeah, I missed that.
We,
me too.
We play at Tribbles in Piedmont, South Carolina, and that's where Weed Eater has played and Conan has played. And, it's a low ceiling on success, which also means that like the barrier to entry is also really low. Like we're basically, getting to be in the same spaces as the bands that we look up to and admire. And it's not this rarefied air that they exist in. Like it's the same space, and it's really cool to kind of be a participant, whatever side of the stage you're on. You're a participant. You're on, like, literally the stage in most places we play is like 6 inches off the ground. There's very little elevation of the band over the audience.
Yeah, and it's really for me. It's neat to kind of go out and interview bands and to see them play live and whatnot, because like, for example, one of the things I thought was really cool is I was covering Blue Ridge Rock Fest a couple of years ago, and I was down in the pit taking pictures of Ice-T. Body Count was playing, and I look over to my right, and there is Pepper Keenan hanging out watching the show, and I'm like, I'm standing next to Pepper Keenan in a pit hanging out, and I was just like, this is fucking amazing. Like, I'm in a good place right now. It's so weird to like be in a weird part of that circle. It's like, I don't know. It's a big ego boost, even like, again, if not many people really appreciate it, it's still pretty neat. So I imagine you guys get a kick out of it.
I think that's one of the greatest things about, the smaller worlds in music is, all of the musicians are fans. And a lot of the fans are musicians, and like you're really I've been to shows where like it's just like, okay, this segment of the crowd is on stage now, and then we're just going to trade out and watch each other, and everybody's stoked. And it's there's nothing that we're doing that anybody out there couldn't do and figure out pretty quickly and get to the same place that we are, and I think that's cool. Like, the more the merrier, and this is how we have fun and make sense of the world. So, the more the merrier.
Yeah, I agree with you. My youngest daughter, she's starting to appreciate, she's always appreciated really good underground music, but like when we came out to Monstercade and watching you guys and I Become Death, we were basically right up front, and she just got a kick out of the fact that it was like, she could just reach out and touch you guys like you're there. And I was like, yeah, that's part of what makes it fun, is because it's a community kind of thing. Like later on, if you want to talk to these guys, they'll chat with you. And, and she's starting to see that as opposed to, these really big popular musicians who are just completely unreachable by any normal mortal means, and how kind of clinical and disconnected that is. It kind of lacks a warmth, and she's kind of following but in the direction I went, which is like she likes her own crazy sort of alternative punk type of music, and is starting to really kind of go, she's like, pop music sucks, I'm getting sick of, it's like, my job here is done.
The community element is certainly one of the most important pieces, I think, of what we do. I wouldn't want to get to a place where it feels clinical. I want to be able to have interactions with the audience, and I want to be able to be in the audience and have interactions with the other bands. I think the community is so important to what we do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
The collective we, not just we, the band, but just like the scene in general.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, well, I would say you guys are definitely a part of that, to say the least. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you guys too terribly long. I know that you probably have other things to do, and I just wanted to give you a chance to, go ahead and plug whatever upcoming shows you've got, your social media, where you can find the music. I do a lot of word of mouth for you guys. Like my buddy was over this past weekend, and he was in a band called like Tusker years ago, and I forgot that he's been in a bunch of bands, but he's like real local to the scene. And he was kind of surprised he hadn't heard you guys, and so I'm hoping that you got a couple extra streams this past week off of that. But tell everybody else where they can just find all your goodies, and hopefully this will bump your numbers a bit.
All right. Well, I'll talk shows, and then Ryan, you want to talk about the internet?
You got it.
All right. So, depending on when this airs, we are playing Friday, July 28th at Local 506 in Chapel Hill with Bongfoot from Boone and Skull Servant from Chapel Hill. And that will just be an awesome show for anybody who likes super fuzzy, kind of more Electric Wizard type doom. That's going to be Skull Servant. Anybody who is maybe a little bit more thrash or High on Fire inclined, but also likes a good bit of Dead Kennedys 80s hardcore sense of humor and satirical goofiness. Bongfoot is ace. They have this perfect niche that they fall into, and they're great dudes. So that's that. And then us at the end, if you feel like sticking around. The following night, July 29th, which is a Saturday, we'll be in Wilmington. It should be a great beach day and an awesome doom night at Reggie's with Yule, a newer band from Wilmington. Again, Bongfoot and Doomsday Profit. And then Beard of Antlers is going to be headlining. And they've been around for a good long time and really kind of nail it. And it's a bunch of dudes from bands that you've seen before. So super awesome Wilmington show. After that, we're going to be a little bit more sparse. In August, we're doing the Seismic Summerfest in Charlotte at the Milestone on August 26th. That'll be with Basque and Witch Pit and Cosmic Reaper. Warlung, who are also on Heavy Psych Sounds, is playing. I'm going to forget bands because there's 10 of them, but Rocky Mountain Roller's on it, and actually Bongfoot's on it too.
Yeah.
Orenda from Virginia, and Bogloaf, who are Charlotte locals and absolutely murder every audience in front of them because they're awesome. So that'll be a good all day Doom Fest. There's going to be food trucks on site and everything. So hopefully, people who are just sort of in the Carolinas heavy scene, come out and hang out for some or all of it and have a great time.
Yeah.
After that, the next thing we've got going on is the Hopscotch Music Festival in Raleigh.
Oh yeah, that's right. You guys told me about that. That's badass.
Yeah, we're super stoked, and thrilled and honored to be a part of that. It's always been a treat to go to the festival. It'll be a little weird being on the other side of it this time, but we're very stoked. And then I'm still ironing out some of the details on booking, but at the end of September, we're going to be doing a few days on tour, going down to Athens for the Shade Beast 6th anniversary weekender, and playing a couple shows on either side of that. So that announcement will be forthcoming.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah, it's funny, all the bands you were naming, it sounds like this festival is going to be kind of like the Weedian compilation live, which is an awesome thing.
Yeah, it'll be great. I mean, it's like, I want to say it's 10 or 12 bands or something like that for like $25. So
I'm gonna have to try to come to that, man. That sounds like that's going to be a little too good to miss.
Yeah, it'll be good. And then after September, I think we're going to lay low for a bit and try to get a record done. So we are overdue for a full length. So after we finish our run in September, it'll be time to remedy that.
Okay.
Yep. And as far as the music that we do have out, you can stream in Idle Orbit wherever you prefer to stream. Or if you prefer to purchase music, we are also on Bandcamp. We're on all of the socials. I'm pretty sure every handle, whatever your preferred social channel is, it's Doomsday_Profit. PROI. Wow.
You want to try that again?
Not really. PROFIT. Not the prophet, as it were, for those listening.
Not one predicting the future, making money.
Yeah,
exactly.
making that money from the doomsday. Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you can stream us wherever or follow us wherever. Brian pretty much handles the Instagram. I pretty much handle the TikTok. And and everything else in between.
Well, and then one other thing on the horizon that you heard it here first. We are finalizing a split release with the band Smoke from Lynchburg, Virginia. Release details are to be determined, but the music is recorded and is in the final stages of mixing and mastering right now.
All right. Well, I feel privileged to be the first to make this announcement. Well, thank you, sir. That sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to that and the full length, because I've basically worn out your EP at this point. Getting some fresh material is going to be right up my alley. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good deal.
And our sets lately have been incorporating a good bit of new music that, on the forthcoming split that I mentioned, as well as a couple songs that we are planning to include on the full length or whatever comes next. So we have some more writing to do, but if you come out and see us on any of these upcoming shows, you'll probably get a little taste of what's to come.
Awesome. Yeah, so you guys make sure you go out and check out Doomsday Profit and all of their wonderful doomy endeavors, because I can't recommend it enough. Well, thanks so much for talking to me, you guys. I appreciate the do-over. I feel like this was a little bit less stressful for me. Last time I was just too busy buzzing around, and I almost committed that sin a second time this morning. That's why I was getting in touch with you guys. It's like, all right, man, I'm trying to make sure I'm going to screw this up if I don't actually put some weird, okay, I got to set aside the time. Don't overbook your day. So I appreciate you taking a second.
I get that feeling, man, all the time. Yeah, I appreciate your time, and always great chatting with you.
Yeah,
I actually had my boss message me just a minute ago, being like, "Hey, I know we have a meeting scheduled, but do you need the time back?" And I was like, "Yes."
Okay, good deal. Well, that's nice of him to kind of chill and be accommodating. Well, all right, awesome.
Yeah, she's great.
Good. Oh, before I let you guys go, would you be able to? Well, no. You know what? You gave me a download Okay. Are you guys okay with me using a song or two to include in the episode so people can hear it? I try to do that as often as possible, but I just want to make sure it's cool. Okay. Yeah, you guys gave me a download of it. If I have run into any problems, I might email you to see if you can send me a copy, but I think it should be good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, happy to.
We can get you waves or whatever if you need a higher quality file.
Okay.
I think if you're downloading from Bandcamp, it'll give you that option too. But whatever works. Or if you need another download code or whatever, we'll hook it up.
Okay.
And, feel free to use whatever song or songs you like.
Is there any in particular you'd like for me to put on there? Like, that you would like to be, the one that goes on here for people to hear?
Do you have any favorites?
I like Crown of Flies. I don't know, but I'm kind of a sucker for intro songs because I always feel like that's sort of the mission statement of the band. But I dig that one. So that's probably the one I'm going to use. But if there's another one you guys would prefer, I'm completely fine with that.
No, if that's what you want to use, I say go for it. That is objectively our favorite song, and and one we haven't played live since 2022.
That's been a hot minute.
Oh wow, no kidding. Why don't you play it? Is it just you wore it out, kind of tired of it?
Well, I mean, there's like everything with us, it's never just one thing, right? So there's a couple things. One, we switched drummers at the beginning of the year. So that was one that David just hasn't learned yet. So we've actually been talking about whether to bring it back, but also because we
it's not like he's been, just slacking on learning it. We haven't brought it into the set list rotation. So
those damn drummers
taught it to him is more.
Getting him up to speed at the beginning of the year, it was sort of like, okay, let's write a set list and then learn that and then add as we go. And because we're in the process of writing new material and putting new material into the set, we're playing fewer and fewer songs off of In Idle Orbit each time we, kind of revise the set list. So that one just it hasn't been in the set list, and we haven't practiced it. It's also, I think part of the reason it got cut was it, at least to me, is very much, that's our pandemic song. That's the song that we wrote in isolation, and that was pretty directly, at least to me, as direct as I get, about that point in time and that particular series of crises. So, having come out of that, it feels a little bit less topical. But I don't know. I think my hope is if I did a good job with it, is that it will maintain relevance regardless over time. But I don't mind having a little bit of a distance from that one at the moment.
that's it for this episode of the Piedmont Triad Podcast. I want to thank the guys from Doomsday Profit for taking a second time to sit down and chat with me. Make sure you go to doomsdayprofit.com. So that's Doomsday and the word profit, spelled Profit.com, where you can find connections and links to their Bandcamp page, all of their social media, and everything that they mentioned in the interview prior. I think you should go and check them out and give them the support and go pick up In Idle Orbit. You will not be disappointed. Also, I want to thank Matt Smith and the Cowboy Spankers for letting us use their song Not Tonight as our theme music, and my buddy Brian Falk, who always knocks it out of the park with the awesome artwork that he gives us, and the artwork that you see with the nice little label and the microphone wearing a hat. That's all his doing. If you're ever interested in contacting him, go on to Facebook and look up Brian Falk in the Winston-Salem area, and I'm sure that he'll give you some nice, wonderful drawings you won't regret having. Also, make sure you go to the Piedmont Triad Podcast.com to catch up on any episodes that you may have missed in the past. Also, you can go to any major podcast platform player such as Spotify, Apple Music, Spreaker, any place that you listen to podcasts, we should be on there. And we're going to try to start making these episodes regular on probably every other Monday is most likely what the publishing schedule is going to be like. So that's when you can look for new episodes to drop. We're going to try to be a little bit more consistent about that. It's been kind of bad here recently, but I'm hoping for a little bit more stability so that we can pop these things out and get you guys the fix that you need if you like listening to the Piedmont Triad Podcast. And anyway, I guess that's going to be it. Until next time, Piedmont Triad, take care.
Maybe I should keep on moving. You're like the devil when the sun goes down. Stay away from me. Well, I'm too far gone. There ain't nothing here to see, babe. So you best just move